Number 9. Stephen SILVA. In February of 2021, while he was given a routine haircut, a Boston barber impaled himself on his own scissors. The incident was captured by surveillance cameras at the Boston Barber and Tattoo Company. Looking back on the incident, customer Max Cohen remembered that his barber, Stephen SILVA, slipped and fell as he was walking behind the chair. Cohen initially believed that SILVA was fine, but then saw blood on the floor, followed by the barber voicing a horrific realization. He said, "Oh my God, I just stabbed myself." SILVA was rushed to Massachusetts General, where he underwent open heart surgery, and the shop's owner, Robert Della Russo, told a media outlet that the barber was lucky to be alive. As the scissors pierced through his chest, the blades clipped an artery. Had the wound been an inch to the left or right, SILVA would have likely bled out before he could receive help. Della Russo also reported that the authorities had told the employees not to clean up the scene, as they believed a stabbing had occurred. Della Russo said that he found the police skepticism understandable, as it indeed sounded suspicious how SILVA had been wounded through the chest and brought to the brink of death by simply falling on his scissors. A subsequent review of the surveillance footage confirmed that, albeit a freak occurrence, the injury had been entirely accidental. Number 8. Lilia Novikova. In June of 2019, a woman dubbed Russia's most beautiful poker player was found dead at her Moscow home after she sustained a massive electric shock. Aside from boasting a considerable social media following, 26-year-old Lilia Novikova, known as Lia5, was the most popular female poker streamer on Twitch. When she was still in her early 20s, the prodigious player gained the highest ranking on the PokerStars site and at one point earned close to $55,000 during a live tournament. She was regarded as a positive influence and bright star prior to her passing. A neighbor who had the keys to her Kutasovsky Prospect apartment was asked to check on Novikova by her parents. After they were unable to reach her, the neighbor found her dead on the bathroom floor. What had started out as a regular day abruptly turned tragic for the professional card player. Novikova was blow-drying her hair, and it's believed that the hairdryer suffered critical failure, severely electrocuting her. The authorities didn't treat her death as suspicious and confirmed traces of an electrical injury on her body, while it's also been reported that she'd banged her head as she collapsed. Her passing and the circumstances in which it occurred came as a shock to those in the card-playing community, many of whom took to social media to express their condolences. Number 7. Anthony Iles. In September of 2021, Anthony Iles, aged 42, suffered deadly injuries at a McDonald's in Vancouver. As family members and staff looked on in horror, Iles was in the process of paying for his order at a drive-through window when he dropped his bank card. He reached down to grab it, at which point his car started rolling forward. As shown by CCTV footage, the vehicle collided into a structural piece of the restaurant, which resulted in Iles being crushed between the car frame and the door. Paramedics were called to the scene and attempted resuscitation, but there was nothing more to be done for him. Iles' body was covered with a tarp and his vehicle was towed as the authorities conducted their investigation, but Constable Tanya Vicentin of the Vancouver Police Department confirmed that it had been a freak accident. Number 6. Thomas Arrington. While visiting New England in the fall of 2021, an Alaskan man was killed in an unusual road accident. Much like they had in previous years, 69-year-old Thomas Arrington and his wife had planned a trip to see the change in autumn leaves. The couple had included some lighthouse tours in their itinerary, and after arriving in Massachusetts, they were traveling northbound on I-95 in a rented Ford Fusion. Arrington was behind the wheel while his wife was in the passenger seat. They were near Danvers when a screed, which is a type of tool used to level freshly poured concrete, fell out of a 2020 Ford F550 dump truck traveling in front of them. With the speed at which both vehicles were traveling, the screed turned into a deadly projectile. It pierced through the windshield of Arrington's Ford and struck him. The man was mortally wounded, but he mustered enough strength to safely bring the car to a stop. His heartbroken daughter would later tell a media outlet, "He spent his last breath making sure my mum was okay." The dump truck's driver wasn't identified beyond the information that he was a 21-year-old man working for a Massachusetts construction company. He fully cooperated with investigators, and it remained to be determined if he'd face charges. Number 5. KAITLYN KAUFMAN. While on her way to work on the night of December the 3rd of 2020, KAITLYN KAUFMAN was gunned down in Nashville, Tennessee. KAUFMAN, an intensive care unit nurse, was heading for a shift at Ascension St. Thomas Hospital West. Authorities found her Mazda CX-5 SUV, which had been shot through multiple times, on the right shoulder of I-440. KAUFMAN was slumped over in the driver's seat. She had succumbed to a gunshot wound and was declared dead at the scene. The killing came as a shock, particularly in the context of the pandemic, at a time when ICU workers were hailed as heroes. Two men, Devontae Hill and James Cowan, both in their 20s, were arrested in the aftermath. They didn't know Kaufman, and multiple sources reported that they'd opened fire on her SUV simply because she'd cut them off in traffic. An unnamed witness came forward claiming that he traded weapons with Hill a few days after Kaufman had been killed. The witness produced a Springfield 9mm handgun, which was a 100% match to the 3 spent 9mm cartridge casings recovered from the scene. Hill's cell phone records placed him at the time and in the area of the shooting. A SWAT team apprehended him from his East Nashville apartment on the morning of December the 11th. Cowan was arrested as a suspected accomplice about a month later. As the authorities took him into custody, they recovered 2 semi-automatic handguns, 126 rounds of ammunition, a pound of marijuana gummies, 7 ounces of marijuana, more than 5 grams of suspected cocaine, 238 Xanax bars, and 56 Adderall pills in his car. Regarding Kaufman's killing, both Hill and Cowan were charged with criminal homicide, while each faced further charges individually. Number 4. Michaela Bohr. In March of 2018, Michaela Bohr dropped off her 4-year-old son at a school in East London and then did some shopping. 28-year-old Bohr was on her way home when she passed by a construction site operated by Higgins Homes. As she was walking on the pavement, a pallet of bricks that was being transported by a crane to the adjoining site broke free. A cascade of construction crashed on top of Bohr, rendering her in a critical condition. Paramedics arrived at the scene and they were successful in reviving her. Unfortunately, she was declared brain dead, and a few days later, on her 29th birthday, Bohr's family made the difficult decision of switching off her life support. The Metropolitan Police, along with the health and safety executive, assured the family that investigations were underway. However, more than a year since the accident, there were still no charges, as the authorities claimed the inquiry hadn't yet reached a conclusion. Bohr's family expressed frustration at the slow progress, while in the meantime, Higgins Homes had completed the luxury development unbothered and sold it to private owners. Family members still had no answers, while they were forced to routinely walk Bohr's son on his way to school past the spot where his mother died. Number 3. Daniel Young. While heading to the second day of his dream job at Coventry University London campus, 30-year-old lecturer Daniel Young was brutally stabbed in a random attack on January the 19th of 2016. The perpetrator was 37-year-old gardener Mark Loveridge, a sufferer of paranoid schizophrenia, who at the time hadn't taken his medication. Earlier in the day, in another random stabbing, Loveridge had targeted 23-year-old Polish builder Kamil Bulat near his home in Mitcham, South London. Bulat was loading tools into his car when Loveridge approached him from behind, stabbed him twice in the buttocks, and then fled. Fortunately, Bulat's injuries weren't deemed life-threatening, and he recovered. CCTV cameras subsequently captured Loveridge as he wandered the streets for about an hour and a half before passing Young's home. He then entered a park called Kender Gardens at about 7:37 a.m. and called his part-time employer to say that he'd be late for work. Young went into the park through the same gate that Loveridge had used minutes earlier. He reportedly walked too close to Loveridge, triggering his paranoia, and was stabbed once in the stomach. The 4-inch blade pierced through Young's abdominal wall and into his bowel, causing him to bleed out at the scene. Loveridge discarded the wooden handle knife in some bushes and was later linked to it via DNA evidence. He was examined by mental health specialists, to whom he told that he'd been awoken by voices in his head on the day of the fatal stabbing. While awaiting sentencing, he was sent to Broadmoor, a high-security psychiatric hospital. Number 2. Estelle Davis. In March of 2021, a nurse on her way to work was fatally struck by an excavator's digging bucket in Brooklyn, New York City. 61-year-old Estelle Davis was crossing an intersection of New Lots and Van Sinderen Avenue while looking at her cell phone. As she was walking towards the sidewalk, An excavator driver was simultaneously backing up into the intersection. Neither party spotted the other, resulting in Davis being hit directly in the head by the digger's bucket. She instantly dropped to the ground while the driver continued to pull out of the driveway, dragging her limp body behind the excavator for several feet. Surveillance cameras captured the tragic incident as it unfolded. Davis remained motionless in the middle of the intersection until the emergency services were called to the scene. She was rushed to the Brookdale Hospital, where she was later pronounced dead. Number 1. ELENA Lindsay Struthers-Gardner. On November the 22nd of 2018, a retired jockey suffered a catastrophic brain injury following an accident at her home in Poole, Dorset, England. 60-year-old ELENA Lindsay Struthers-Gardner had been involved in the professional equestrian world until she was forced to retire due to injury. Working with horses had been her lifelong passion, and even after she'd closed the chapter on competitive riding, she continued training horses, at one point having over a dozen in her care. Struthers-Gardner's life was cut short by an accident in which she fell and in the process impaled her eye on a metal drinking straw. The sharp metal piece pierced through her eyeball and into her brain, causing a traumatic injury. Struthers-Gardner was admitted to Southampton General Hospital, where it was determined that she wouldn't recover. Her life support was withdrawn in the early hours of the following morning, with the approval of her civil partner, Mandy. Thanks for watching. Would you rather start every day off by stepping out of bed, right onto a Lego, or getting a cup of cold water thrown on your face? Let us know in the comments section below.